So, the purpose of this video is to discuss some final thoughts on outlining as well as the conclusion, which is the last part of any outline. A couple things that I want to go ahead and relate. You'll notice as we get into the conclusion, you don't need to transition into the conclusion. Just like you didn't need to transition into the body, in our case, the thesis acts like a transition. It previews the different points we're going to address in the body. And as you probably remember from writing essays in freshman and sophomore English, one of the things a conclusion needs is a thesis recap. That's going to be the first step here in your conclusion. Notice we restart the Roman numeraling. So we've got Roman numeral 1 here. That's a change up from what we had in our previous part of the body. We went from Roman numeral 3 in the body to Roman numeral 1 in the conclusion. But that's a thesis recap right here. So, what do we do with a thesis recap? We address the points that were addressed in the thesis, but we do it changing the language up. We don't want to just copy and paste the thesis because that's lazy, right? So, we go ahead and remind the audience what they just listened to. They say geocaching is great because it's a lot like a real treasure hunt. It's almost as exciting. Preparing the items for geocaching, that's my first point. And looking for the cache, that's my second point. Require us to be creative and think outside the box. I've explained again how to prepare for your geocache, how to look for it, and what to do once you found it. So they even go even more explicit and state their points there. Um, Additionally, the last part of your speech should have what's called a clincher. A clincher is a creative, definitive way of letting the audience know that you are all done. As we've talked about already, you don't want to say something like, and that's my speech, or I'm done, or the end. Um, I would encourage you to try and tie it back to your attention getter in some way, or try and tie it back to something that you introduced in the intro. The reason for this is because it almost gives us a sense that we've gone on a bit of a journey. We've been introduced to something in a creative way. You told us all about it, and now we're arriving back at that same sort of thing that you introduced us with. So they say geocaching is, oh, sorry, they say, I hope today I've taught you something about geocaching you didn't know, and sincerely hope that when the weather is nice again, you'll have the ambition to give it a try. Usually, clinchers are clever, they can be witty, sometimes they're puns or jokes, but they should make an impression and they should hopefully connect back to the intro somehow. That having been said, I want to just briefly touch on some of the elements of outlining that I didn't get a chance to talk about earlier. You'll notice as we go ahead and scroll back up through these different parts of the outline, none of these are really developed paragraphs. At any given point, you've got maybe a sentence to three sentences at a crack for any point or subpoint, but you don't want to make this an accidental essay. You want to make sure that you're keeping organization in mind. Some people ask, well, why do this? Why not just go ahead and type out exactly what I'm going to say? Man, it's a lot of work to go ahead and memorize two or three pages word for word. That's an awful lot. Some people ask, well, why do I have to do this at all? Can't I just get up there and wing it? Again, it's the other end of the spectrum. You might know the material really well, but if you're not practicing the structure of intro, body, conclusion, one, you're going to miss some of the things that I'm looking for on your rubric, such as timeliness, relevance, and timeliness, proximity, and personal impact. Um, a thesis statement, that sort of thing. But additionally, you might just lack general structure. You might be all over the place when it comes to relaying information. So an outline gives us the best of both worlds. It asks us to have structure and prepare and organize our ideas, but we have to realize that as we go ahead and deliver our speech, it's not going to be word for word. It's going to be idea for idea, hopefully. Every time we give the speech, it's going to be just a little bit different. And that's okay. That's what it means to be extemporaneous. But the best way of preparing for that is to have a structure in place. So, in the next video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to make an outline in Google Docs. Um, Hopefully, that'll help you out. And that should be the last thing that we need to talk about with regard to outlining.